Kentucky Derby and Postposition Eve. Welcome to the big show as we continue along with our 2022 Kentucky Derby handicapping. And this time around, it's time for the viewer questions. And we're going to take a look at some of the big questions for this 2022 Kentucky Derby. Things like, who is going to be favored? Is it going to be Epicenter? Is it going to be Taiba? Or is it going to be Zandon? A lot of buzz in the last couple of days. Would another horse other than Epicenter be favored? Now, Epicenter did have his final workout, and it looks like I think he's going to probably be made the morning line favorite. But we're going to take your questions. So if you have them, make sure to get them in the comments. We've already got a couple questions in. But before we go to the questions, I do want to update early voting is going to be passing on the Kentucky Derby. That means he's going to go to the Preakness for trainer Chad Brown. And that means Pioneer of Medina, who gets into the field, he could add a little bit more speed to the race. So that's our first question of the day. Who is going to be favored? And right now, I believe it's going to be Epicenter, the morning line favorite, slightly over Zandon. And I think those two horses will pretty much be favored in most of the multi-leg wagers, doubles, and pick threes on Derby Day. First question up from John, who will be on the early pace? Now, my judgment of the early pace, especially in the Kentucky Derby, which is 10 furlongs, a mile and a quarter, I look at the early pace from who is going to have the lead down the backstretch. And that's right around halfway down the backstretch as you go around the turn. That's right around the 4 furlong to 5 furlong mark. I see 3 horses possibly on the lead. I think Simplification is going to be near the pace. I also think Epicenter. And then, even a horse like, you've got Summer of Tomorrow going to come over from UAE Derby, show a little bit of speed. And most likely now you could have Pioneer of Medina. But I do think the 2 horses really fighting for that lead most likely will be Simplification and Epicenter. I do think Epicenter is a horse that wants the lead because he's done most of his running on the lead on that turn going into that far turn. Now, Danny has a question. She says, at the end of the day, with all the speed figures, workouts, what is my never ignore number? Well, my never ignore number is 21. What I like to see is 21 furlongs worked in 30 days. So I take the horse's most recent workout, then I take 30 days off that, and I want to see 21 furlongs in total workout. So that's my magic number. That's definitely a horse that I'll use. Another number, I do like the Beyer speed figure of 100. But this year, there's a couple of horses with 100 Beyer speed figures that I'm not that enamored with. Next question up is wants to talk about Crown Pride right away. So Crown Pride is the UAE Derby winner, and the last 16 UAE Derby runners that have come over and won a run in Kentucky, none of them have won. Now, the difference is most of those runners came over the week of the race. They came over about 8-9 days before the race. They were in quarantine for 48 hours, and they really didn't hit the track till Monday or Tuesday of Derby week. This year, Crown Pride came over immediately after the UAE Derby. He has been training at Churchill Downs for almost 3 weeks now, and he's had some strong gallops, had a 46 workout, had a 6 furlong workout, and I definitely think he is a horse that you're going to want to consider. Now, is he going to be my top choice? I haven't actually made my top choice yet, but I think Crown Pride is one that you have to take a long look at because he's not your normal UAE Derby winner that is coming off, right out of quarantine and going to the lead. One of my questions for you is White Abario. My question for you, if you want to answer, is can he win outside of Gulfstream Park? He won his debut at Gulfstream. Then he went to Churchill Downs in his 3rd lifetime start, had a little bit of trip trouble, lost to Smile Happy, and then came back and win a couple of races, the Holy Bull in the Florida Derby. Strong workout on Saturday. Late in the day, ended up going a good mile gallop out for White Abario. So what do you think of his chances on Derby Day? Now, the next question up is Simplification. Art Spalding says that he is going to stalk So remember, he went wire to wire in the Mucho Macho Man, and then he came off the pace after breaking slow in the Fountain of Youth. Meanwhile, he was just off the pace. The last time around, he went near the lead and kind of dueled with Classic Causeway and ended up fading late, kind of losing ground late down the lane after dueling with Papa Cap. And then White Abario was able to pick up the victory. Early voting is not in the Derby, Tanya. He is going to wait for the Preakness Stakes. And this is a good question. Can Zandon get moving fast enough to win it? Notice the recent on the pace bias. He is making me nervous. That is one of my questions. What happened to Zandon's early speed? In his debut, he was close to a fast pace, split horses, and won at 6 furlongs. Then he made a mid-race move from just off the pace in the Remsen Stakes, but those fractions were very slow in the Remsen, although the racing surface was slow as well. And then meanwhile, when you take a look at his most 2 recent races, he broke slow in the Risen Star, and then he kind of got shuffled back in the Bluegrass. My prediction is that he does have some speed. I do think people are starting to forget about Zandon's speed, and I do think he can show more speed. So my prediction is he's going to be sitting about 7th or 8th place down the backstretch, and he's going to make his move coming out of that, going into that second turn, right around the 7 furlong mark. I expect to see him in the top 6 or 7. I think that's a good question, because I think how you play this race, Zandon is going to be keyed on a lot of tickets. Next question up. White Abario is very overrated. That's what Steven says, so he's not a big White Abario fan. Jeremiah wants to talk about Messier. Now, Messier, remember, type in your questions. Messier ran 2nd in his most recent race, the Santa Anita Derby. Before that, he was victorious on February the 6th with a big speed figure. And that's one of my big questions. I do want to get to that, because when you talk about Messier, you got to talk about the Buyer's speed figures. I want to bring those up. This is a good question. Messier ran a 103 speed figure back in February, but then he came back and lost. And another horse who ran a big speed figure that day was Adari Manor. She came back and lost to a 14-1 shot that's going to be running in the Kentucky Oaks, Desert Dawn. Then Taiba beat Messier the last time out. So where do you sit on that speed figure for Messier? Do you think that 103 Buyer is accurate for Messier? Leave a comment, and we'll take a look, more discussion on that Messier speed figure and overall. Now, this guy says Zandon has a shot in the Belmont. That's what Tanya says. I do think Zandon actually does have a strong pedigree and the right running style for the Belmont. Flavian Prott, of course, rode Zandon in the last race. Flavian's going to ride Zandon like Country House, Bo's closers. He's going to try to stay forwardly placed. I think that's what people want out of Zandon this trip. I think he has enough speed to be within the top 10. Another question is, where do we sit on the possible happening of a pace meltdown? So that's going to be interesting. I do want to talk about Tiz the Bomb. What's the people's opinion on Tiz the Bomb? Goes from synthetic, now goes back to dirt. What do you do with that Holy Bull Stakes? He lost by 20 lengths, but he was washed out that day. And then he came back with the win in the Battaglia and also in the Jeff Ruby Stakes the last time out. Made a big move, a big Brisnet speed figure of 101. Came back with a couple of nice workouts. He's been working out with Smile Happy in company in his 2 most recent workouts for trainer Ken McPeak. Kind of disappointing early spring for Ken McPeak. He had Smile Happy and Tiz the Bomb. They disappointed in their first start outs. Smile Happy running 2nd to Zandon the last time out. Now, Epicenter, my big question for you on this one is, can Epicenter come off the pace in a big field? So now Epicenter ran in the Gunrunner Stakes, then he ran in the Lecomte Stakes. Now the Lecomte Stakes was his only loss in those 4 races at the fairgrounds. And in that race, he was pressured on the front end by Papa Cap a little bit. And then he also got a little bit of a heat from a long shot in that race. So Epicenter came from 2nd place the last time out. He came from coming off the pace. Zozo's had the lead. Then Pioneer of Medina was up there. He made a little bit of a 3-wide move, went out in the center of the track down the stretch, and ended up pulling off to the victory. But if you notice in his points of call, he has been near the lead in most of those races. So can Epicenter come off the pace? Trey says Tiz the Bomb will not be a long shot anymore. I still think he's going to be about 15-1 morning line. And to me, anything over 12-1 is a long shot. So now another person says Tiz the Bomb is a turf horse. He said tough horse, but it could be a turf horse. You know, his best races as a 2-year-old were probably on the turf, but he did have a rained off turf race that he ran at Ellis Park, the Pea Patch. He ended up running away with a big victory in that race. I think Tiz the Bomb is a horse that I still got to take a long look at, just because back-to-back recent wins. He's a multiple stakes winner. He beat Tawnyport, who came back to win the Lexington Stakes. So I think that puts Tiz the Bomb definitely as a top 10 contender in a spot like that. So Diane wants to know who will be compromised by post position. So that brings up another question. How much of an importance is post position in making your final selection? Now, for a lot of years, we had the 1 hole and the 20 post position. And of course, Ferdinand was one of the few horses to win out of that 1 post position. Now they've got a starting gate that is 20 post positions. It's not a 2-gate process anymore. We've only had 2 derbies run with that new gate. Authentic won, he went wire to wire. And then we had Medina Spirit win, go wire to wire on the track. He was disqualified. But, we've had speed being more common lately in the most recent years. And, that's going to be a big question. Again, can White Abario win away from Gulfstream? And another question in, Yacht Team didn't want to empty the tank with Messier. Already had enough Derby points. Derby is the goal. So this one says that Messier definitely can improve. The one thing is with Messier, he's definitely sitting on a big race, worked out quicker back off the layoff of that Santa Anita Derby than Taiba did. And what are some of the people's thoughts about Taiba after him skipping that most recent workout? Again, we already talked about Zandon, but my big question for him, has he lost some of that early speed? And while we talk about that, another question coming up about Messier, do you see Messier on the lead or pressing? And do you think he can win? I think he can win. I am actually making the case, my personal opinion is that Messier has been near the lead and he kind of idles on the front end. He had the lead in the Losail Futurity and he kind of just sat out there and he got run down by a long shot, slow down Andy. Then he had the lead in the Santa Anita Derby, got run down by a horse coming off a 6-furlong race. I think Messier, can he be near the lead? Yes. Does he have the speed to be near the lead? Yes. I think he'd actually be better served coming from about 10th place early and making a sweeping move. I think he's been hindered by facing these small horses out west. I think his pedigree, Empire Maker, and a lot of distance pedigrees in his first 4 generations. That's what I think. Now, will he be near the lead? He could be near the lead. That's how he's been running. But I do think a horse like him could be better off coming from off the pace. Do you think Classic Causeway will change the pace? Yes. I think Classic Causeway is a true alpha. He's the type of horse that wants to be on the lead. I think with him up there, then you get Epicenter, you get possibility of maybe Simplification and maybe Messier. Then we could have a pace meltdown. Now, last week, a couple of people, they were predicting a pace meltdown. I'm not ready to predict that yet. That's going to be my biggest question as I do get a look at post positions. But I do think post positions will have an impact, not so much on the actual post position, but where is the speed? If the speed draws way outside, then that pace could heat up a little bit because they're going to have to gun it from the outside. If that speed draws the rail, again, they may go to the lead and may have to dictate a little bit faster pace. If they draw in the middle of the track, that allows them to see. And then if you get 2 or 3 speeds side by side, sometimes that can turn up the pace gauge and get a little bit more speed in the race. Now, Siggy says, on a pace standpoint, Classic Causeway Edition could make an impact on the race. So this is not Florida. Last race out, Classic Causeway got dueled by Papa Cap on the turn. And before that, he had to deal with Simplification in Classic Causeway. You know, he did have a nice 7 furlong gallop on Saturday. Some people think Classic Causeway could long-term be a good turfer. But yeah, I think Siggy makes a good point. Classic Causeway does add some speed. And, you know, the problem with that, now this guy, Chris, wants to talk about Taiba. And I've heard that's how it's pronounced. I was calling it Taiba, but we're going to go with Taiba. He likes him a lot before missing training. The big speed figure on Taiba, do you think that he really got a 103? And those sometimes in those small fields out west, we see horses run really brave on or near the lead, and they can run faster paces because in those small fields, there's nobody that's going to run you down. So you really don't have to worry about getting run down by a long shot. Here's one I want to talk about is Mo Donegal. His 111 Brisnet speed figure was way higher than the Beyer speed figure. Beyer has Mo Donegal with a lot lower speed figure. Time Form kind of has it in the middle. Where do you think Mo Donegal ran on a speed figure wise overall from a speed figure? Do you believe the Beyer speed figure, which is a little bit slower, or do you believe that Brisnet speed figure? He came home in under 24 seconds, and Mo Donegal definitely one to watch here. If you can take that speed figure from Brisnet, a 111, and the late pace rating gives him a high speed figure and a high pace rating, and that's usually a good combination. That's another thing that I like to see. Danny asked that earlier. So that's good. So Danny says that she is learning a lot about horse racing, and that's good to see. You know, what we're trying to do here is handicap as a group. Sometimes you get people with different opinions, and sometimes with that, you get people that, you know, as you kind of hear some different handicapping ways of handicapping, you can start to determine maybe you got to entertain some speed figures, workouts. Anybody been impressed with some of the workouts this week? Do you think Pioneer of Medina also adds to the early pace? I think he could. Pioneer of Medina, of course, went wire to wire at Tampa Bay. Then he shipped to the fairgrounds and went wire to wire. Now, the last time out, he had to face some other speed in Zozos. But Zozos, what do you think about a horse like this? He's only got 3 lifetime races. He's only got 1 more race than a horse like Taiba. Now, Cyberknife is a horse I want to talk about as well. He's another horse that's won back-to-back races. He got a fast speed figure on the same day that the Risen Star was run, and that's when Epicenter got a fast speed figure as well, although speed did really well on the Risen Star day, and that may have hindered horses like Smile Happy and Zandon, who came back to run bigger speed figures and big races at the Bluegrass. Jeremiah says, if Messier gets post position 5 to 11 and breaks good in rate, he could be very dangerous. So I kind of am leaning that way, Jeremiah. Now, he's got enough natural speed if he wants to go to the lead. But my question is, he had the lead in the Santa Anita Derby, got beat. He had the lead in the La Salle Futurity, and he got beat. He got beat both times on the square. So I don't know if you want to do that a third time. Now, the jockey on him, John Velasquez, does well with speed horses in the Derby. He won with Always Dreaming. He won with Authentic. And then last year he went wire to wire with Medina Spirit. And I'm not so sure anybody over the last 4 or 5 years has ridden in the Kentucky Derby as well as John Velasquez. Who's your best long shot? Let's get some long shots from some of our watchers here. Remember, if you have a question, this one on Taiba blew by Messier like he was standing still, says Henry. Yeah, he did. He really kind of just rated going into the turn. He was being scrubbed a little bit. He was even with him halfway down the stretch, and then he kind of just blew him away. But just the one workout, does that worry you at all, Henry? Is there a horse that you would not leave out if they draw the one post? Yes, the horse I would not leave out at all would probably be Zandon. I think Zandon does. I think he's going to be sitting mid-pack no matter where he gets for a post position. So if Zandon draws the one hole, it wouldn't bother me at all. Now, if Epicenter draws the one hole, that would be, I'd have to think a little bit on where I want to place Epicenter, if it'd be more of a key horse or maybe second or third overall. So Let's get some long shots. Give me your long shots. First off, we're going to start with Henry. He says Crown Pride, the best shot with the Sunday Silence influence on both sides of the pedigree. Remember, Crown Pride will probably be over 20-1, even with that bullet workout. Another long shot, we've got Happy Jack. Happy Jack has this guy's long shot. Jay says for his long shot. Chris says closers can hit the board from the one hole. Looking at Lucky and looking at Lee. Good point. Yes. And we've also had some other closers close well from that post position. So it's not necessarily a way that you can't do it, but it does maybe make you think about strategy overall. So for me, post positions are semi-important according to Bill. He says after months of research and prep races, I'm not going to toss it all out if it draws the one hole or the 20 hole. I agree with Bill here. It's like you can't do all this handicapping. You can't have the horse ready to go. Big Brown went out of the 20 hole. Looking at Lucky was compromised out of the one hole. Ferdinand, he had an interesting trip. Shoemaker guiding him to victory back in the 86 Kentucky Derby. And we've got another long shot. Bill W. says Barber Road. I do think Barber Road is going to have some of that long shot playability, and maybe a horse like that could be tough. Taiba, can he overcome the curse of Leonatus winning the Derby in just his third lifetime start? And we've got the world's biggest Joel Rosario fan. Willie 85 is going with Echo Zulu and Joel Rosario for some Oak Derby double. Now, remember, Tuesday night, we're going to get together. We're going to have the past performances for a day on Monday. And then at 7 o'clock Tuesday Central, 8 Eastern, we're going to have a study group where we're just going to handicap together, talk about your handicapping theories. We'll have the post position. So make sure to come back here on Tuesday night for our Kentucky Derby study guide. As we study together, kind of gets people thinking about some of the ways that they like to handicap the Kentucky Derby. Most accurate speed figures for Mo Donegal. Any other opinions on that? What speed figures are you believing on Mo Donegal? Let's see what another question is. That'd be crazy if Calumet Farm wins the Kentucky Derby with possibly the biggest long shot ever. Fans of the Derby Day, remember a couple of years ago when Funny Duck, when it was a sloppy track and it was raining, Funny Duck was trained by Calumet Farm, and they've been coming in with some long shots. They won with that sprinter at Saratoga last year at 25-1, paid over $50. So Calumet Farm has come in on some long shots. So remember, the Oaks draws tomorrow, the Derby draws tomorrow, 13 races on the Oaks card, 14 races on the Derby card. We've also got the Pat Day Mile. We're going to be talking Tuesday night in our Derby study session, maybe some Oaks Derby double. And then we're going to talk a little bit about ticket strategy on some pick fours and pick fives. Some other long shots. This guy, we've got for Kathleen O or Nest for their Kentucky Oaks picks. Yes, if you have a Kentucky Oaks. Charles B says he likes to use Equibase speed figures as his go-to speed figures for the Kentucky Derby. Another thing to talk about question is simplification. Look at again, he went wire to wire in the Mucho Macho Man. He went wire to wire by 16 lengths, a 109.4. He got a 103 Brisnet speed figure back in October. That was on the front end. He got a 99 on the front end. That is why I think simplification could be on the lead, because I just think he's got a lot of raw speed. And yeah, he could have won the Holy Bull if he'd have gotten a better start. But by getting that bad start, he, ended up finishing second, and that could have cost him down the road. But simplification, he's had a couple of long workouts for owner Tammy Bobo. Antonio Sono, of course, brought Gunnevera to the Kentucky Derby a couple of years ago. Smile Happy. Anybody on the Smile Happy bandwagon still? Of course, yes, Mine That Berg. He was a great long shot. They made a movie about it. And the way he did it, he came from dead last. It was off the screen. It was muddy track. Kelvin Burrell, of course, he's won the Derby with Super Saver. Then he won it with Mine That Bird. He also picked up a third Derby win. So, Kelvin Burrell at that time, he was literally giddy after that Derby with Mine That Bird. Now, this guy says somewhere in between on the speed ratings of Mo Donegal. That's basically where I'm at. Mo Donegal, I'm not trusting that 111 Brisnet, but he does have some figures, and he's only got 4 lifetime races. He could be still improving as well. He's only had 2 races this year. He ran in the Fountain of Youth. He had a big long layoff after, or the Holy Bull, then a big layoff after skipping the Fountain of Youth. So a horse like Mo Donegal could be improving. Another one wants to ask about workout. My biggest question, Scorpio, for Crown Pride is only 4 lifetime races, although 3 of those 4 have been a mile and 1/8 or mile and 3/16. But he's just got to face more speed. I think he's going to be sitting maybe 10, 12 lengths back, and I just don't know if he has enough speed the first half of a mile to lay close like that. So $1 supers on Oaks Derby Day. Yeah, it takes a little bit of money to hit that superfecta, but they can pay up to $100,000 as well. Ellie says, only reason I had Mind That Bird was because I wheeled Pioneer of the Nile in a $1 exacta. Good call with Ellis picking up that exacta with Mind That Bird. So Ken McPeak just can't win the big one or win this race. You know, he's won the Belmont with Sarava at 70-1. He's also won some other big races, but Smile Happy, going to be overlooked a little bit. I do want to take a second look. Maybe on Tuesday, we'll discuss him a little bit more. Remember Tuesday night, our study session. We're going to go over some of the things that you like to look at. We're going to have post positions, and then we're going to put together some pick 5 and pick 4 tickets, maybe some Oak Derby doubles so we can kind of play as a group. And then a lot of pressers, according to John G. Now, the pressers are those group that sit in that second pack. You've got that early lead, and then you've got that 4 or 5 horses, and that could be a horse like Messier. That could be Simplification. That could even be Crown Pride. And you've also got like Zozos. We don't even know his running style. He went to the lead in the Louisiana Derby. He came off the pace the race before that from Oaklawn Park, and then he won a 6-furlong race. Zozos has been training as well as anybody, getting ready here for the Derby. Pole position for Taiba, I would want him between 10 and 20, Jacob. I think lightly raced. He just wants to break out of the gate. He does seem like a horse that can control his speed a little bit. So I think Taiba needs an outside post from 10 to 20. Off track, good question. Yes, if we get a horse off track, I definitely think it moves up Epicenter. I think he's got some muddy breeding in his pedigree. I also think it moves up Mo Donegal. I really like the Uncle Mo's in the slop, especially if it's raining that day. I think he would be more of a sloppy type track runner. It would hurt a big clunky horse. I think it would hurt a horse like Zandon. If it was sloppy, I think it could potentially hurt a horse like Taiba, just not having that experience. He's already shipping anyways. Type of horse that maybe has a little bit of foot issues. He was on the vets list after his debut race. He did miss a workout. So I think it could hurt a horse like Taiba if it was sloppy. That's a good question. Wet track, no brainer. Zandon, kind of hoping for a minor sloppy track, according to Trey. And Mo, he wants a wet track, according to Charles. And yes, I think White Abario is going to run his best race in the 2022 Kentucky Derby. I really like this horse. That horse has done nothing wrong. I like the rags to riches aspect of it. He was purchased for $7,500. The new owners watched a maiden race at Gulfstream Park. They purchased him privately, and he's won back-to-back stakes races, almost $900,000. I'll be rooting for White Abario. Plus, he's a big white horse. You can't miss him. If you make a bet on White Abario, you know where he's going to be the entire race. So I would definitely be impressed with a horse like White Abario. Howard Stacks, yes, no problem with picking a horse like White Abario. Another question from, if you got a question, make sure to get there. Now, also, Tuesday night, we'll talk about some Oaks Derby double strategy for supers. If you're going to play a super, we'll talk about this a little bit. I think on Derby, you have to, if you're going to play a super, because the $1 minimum, you got to play a horse first, second, third, kind of key them. So you maybe take 2 horses on top, then your key horse, then 2 or 3 horses third, 3 or 4 horses in fourth. Then you take your horse on top, 2 or 3 horses in second. Otherwise, it just starts spending $2,000, $3,000. Another strategy for supers is to go in. Now, with trifectas at 50 cents, you can start, I like to play 8 or 9 horses in that third position. And then for pick 4s and pick 5s, usually I like to bet 2 horses to win in the Kentucky Derby just because it's a big field and you're getting good prices. So definitely I like that on Derby Day, playing a few horses. So I think that could move up a horse like that. Also, remember, support the channel. The best way you can support the channel is hit that like button. You can share it with somebody or hit that thanks button as we get ready. We've had Derby previews all the way through. We've got the Kentucky Derby preview will be up tomorrow night. Tuesday night, we've got the study group with all of us coming back. Hopefully we can get some people there talking about some of their strategy. And Ian Chef King, I don't trust Mo Donegal's final time. Yes, Chef King does his own speed figures. He's been talking a little bit. He did like earlier this year, he liked the speed figures in the Withers. So he definitely spotted that one early. So who do you think overall has the fastest speed figure as we come up into this race? Sage, the horse has nothing to do with who wins. Oh, Sage is getting very mysterious on here. So implying some other things at play in the Kentucky Derby. Maybe you just got to pick some numbers. As we look at some more questions, will we get a pace meltdown? Let's end it here tonight. Will we get a pace meltdown in the Kentucky Derby? I'm starting to think we could get a little bit of a contested pace. I'm starting to think we could maybe get a runner from maybe 3rd to 7th place. I think it's going to be hard to wire the Kentucky Derby. We wired it with Authentic. We wired it with last year with Medina Spirit. Pretty much Mandaloon was second all the way around. What about viewers? Do you think we could get somebody, get a wire-to-wire winner pretty much for 3 straight years? Let's see some of that thought. My fate in the race is going to be Taiba. I don't think he has got a lot going against him to try to beat the curse of Leonatus. He missed a workout, only 2 lifetime races. That's going to be hard to take him at under 8-1. So I won't be playing Taiba on any of my tickets. Howard says 50-cent try box, White Abario, Zandon, Cyberknife, Charge It, and Messier. That looks like a winner to me, Howard. Go to the window and cash. Charles B says Mo Donegal has the best speed as a closer in the wood pace going to meltdown, more cheap speed. So John G says we could get a hot pace. Jay says Epicenter can be beat. And no, there will not be $1, 10-cent supers. The minimum super is $1. And let's see. Overall, yeah. So I'm going to go with a little bit of a pace meltdown. I want a horse from 3rd to 7th place as my potential pick in the Kentucky Derby. Don't forget, tomorrow I'll have my Kentucky Derby preview. Tuesday night at 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern. We go with our study group. We'll go through all the horses, post positions, odds, morning line, and start building out some tickets for Derby Day. Thanks for joining me. Remember, share and like, and hope to see you on Tuesday night with our Kentucky Derby study session for 2022.